Hi there, everybody. Welcome along to Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Leonard Sultana, and each and every week we talk Comic Cons, comic culture, and all the stuff and nonsense that we get to enjoy at such events. As always, we don't have much in the way of live cons, although we do have a couple that are actually happening here in the UK. I've been keeping a close eye on them, and I'm certain there's one or two small cons happening in the US as well. We'll get into a little bit of the politics and the ethics of that, as we are in the current pandemic state. We're also going to be talking about a whole bunch of conventions which are doing the virtual effort this weekend. We've got ourselves the Storytelling Across Media, which has been organized by Comic Con International. We also have Baltimore Comic Con. We have the Multiframe, also the Mainframe Comic Con, guys. That's who it is. I always get the M's mixed up because we've had Metaverse 2 weeks ago as well, so kind of get mixed up. But no, Mainframe, they're on air right now, and they've got multiple halls happening. They're being incredibly ambitious, but have they overstretched themselves? We're going to get into all of that. I do know that we're confusing a number of our American viewers because, yes, the clocks are all over the shop. We usually find this around this time of year because the English summertime is now done and dusted. And also, I believe the American clocks go back next week. So we've got for Halloween, we've got that all happening. So for 1 week at least, times are a little bit different, but it's 6 o'clock here in the UK. It's 11 a.m. on the Pacific, and I believe 2 p.m. on the East Coast. We'll kind of determine times when we speak to my special guest in a second. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. Into the Blue Misters watching. Wait, is it 5 o'clock? Is it 6? Is it 7? The clock's gone back. Is it still 2020? Please let it be 2021. I've had enough of 2020 right now. Listen, I woke up this morning and all I could think was, hang on a second, you're going to give me another extra hour of 2020? I don't want another extra hour of 2020. I don't think anybody wants another extra hour of 2020. But yes, it's all about time changes, but we're here, and thank you very much indeed for joining us. Like I say, we're going to cover all of that at the back end, all the stuff that's happened with Multiverse 2 weeks ago, Megaverse, sorry, with ReedPOP. Going to deal with all of that because I think it's safe to say ReedPOP will be looking at the numbers, they'll be looking at the audience retention and being a little bit disappointed with what they achieved with that particular event. If anything, we had the Lakes International Comic Art Festival doing their digital version 2 weeks ago. And I think they could possibly feel a little bit better about what they achieved with their output. We'll get into all of that at the back end. Please do stick around. And of course, after half an hour, do please join us on the Patreon page because our Patreon supporters get the full episode, of course. We'll put the full episode audio of this up tomorrow on SoundCloud, Patreon, SoundCloud, Patreon, iTunes, and also Spotify, and then we'll upload the full video on Wednesday. So if you're watching this on Wednesday and you're wanting the full experience, or you've waited for the full experience, welcome along. So thank you very much indeed for joining us, and it's great to also see a guest that while he does have some stuff that's coming up which he does want to talk about, he actually wants to wax lipsodic about Comic-Cons and about San Diego Comic-Con in particular, which means it's a pleasure to have Milton Lawson joining us. Hello there, Milton. How are you, sir? Oh, hang on a second.
On this show.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good considering, that we're in the 2020 context. I'm really happy to be here. I've been a fan of the show for a long time, so it's a bit of a thrill to be here.
Hey, listen, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. As you know, with this particular run of episodes, what we've been doing is starting off with 3 questions. So that's what we're going to start with. I have got my brew to hand with my branded cup, which a friend of mine printed up for me. Thank you very much. Our cup of tea. So I've got some PG tips in this. What is your beverage of choice? What have you got to hand today? Well,
at the moment, I have quickly just grabbed a bottle of water, but I do have a fantastic cup from the fantastic American comedian Bill Hicks.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. Oh, huge fan. Oh, wow.
I thought you were, yes. So, yeah, this is, he has a joke, and I'm just skin covering coffee and some real nervous teeth.
Excellent. Yes, I am a huge fan. I've got all of the DVDs, and I've got this book upstairs with the scripts as well. So no, I'm touched by that. That's fantastic. Excellent stuff. The second question I've been asking is your first Comic Con. Can you remember it? And did you go as a fan, or did you go as a pro? How old were you? Your first convention memory, sir?
My first convention memory was at a local show in Houston, Texas. It was one of those kind of shows that was in the hotel of a ballroom. Didn't even have a name as far as I know. It just, hey, there's a show happening. And it was out during the final issue of Craven's Last Hunt being published.
Whoa,
and
okay.
It just so happened Mike Zeck was there. And I was still young enough and at the age of that I didn't fully comprehend, marketing and scheduling and all of that kind of stuff. And I didn't even know he was there. I didn't even know he was one of the people associated with Craven's Last Hunt. And I just happened to be reading it and, of course, loving it. And I learned that he was the guy. And so I happened to have all of my issues with me. I went and got him signed, but I had not read the last issue yet. And so he said, my favorite thing about this story is that there's, no climactic confrontation between Spider-Man and the antagonist here. And I'm like, what? Spoiler! We didn't even have the word spoiler yet. So.
Oh, man. Craven's Last Hunt was one of the first big series runs which I got into when it comes to American comics. I talk about my comic history quite a bit when it comes to American comics, because when I started properly getting into collecting, DC was doing Millennium and the Justice League International. So I'd been reading Justice International for about a year, and then Millennium started, which is not one of DC's highest high bars when it comes to their event series. But then I was also reading on the Marvel side. I was reading Craven's Last Hunt, and I'd say it was the first multi-title because it crossed over the different Spider-Man titles at the time. And it was the first one which I just went out and got all 6 issues. And it's really coincidental you bring it up, because I also watched the Comics Tropes podcast about it, which Chris did, and he kind of broke down the storyline and broke down the influence of the whole thing. This is coincidental that you bring it up, because that's a comic run that's very dear to my heart. So no, that's fantastic.
As mine as well.
Yeah. And the third question I've been asking is those people that you meet. Like you say, you're a little bit young to understand who Mike Zeck was, but I'm certain you've met some people at conventions where you've just gone a little bit wobbly at the knees, a little bit cotton-mouthed, and just been a little bit awestruck by the people you speak to. Who has been your big kind of brain removal moment when you've met a creator?
I suppose the obvious answer, I'm one of the fortunate people who did manage to get a quick photo moment with the great dearly departed Stan Lee. You're in a massive line, or queue as you guys call it, and you're waiting and waiting, and you're in and out of the little photograph tent, in 30 seconds or something. But the interaction was fun, and Stan, he was Stan, and it was just quite an amazing interaction. I revered the man for so long, so I really enjoyed that quite a lot. I've got another one of those stories I could tell you about in another context
okay.
as well. Just one year I was at San Diego Comic Con, and I was actually scheduled to do something similar to this. I was doing an appearance on a video podcast, and I had scheduled myself an opportunity to do this, but I had miscalculated how long the physical walking distance was, and it was one of the few years that I managed to actually have a room in the hotel that's attached to the convention center. I think that's the Marriott, if I recall.
Yeah.
And so I was hustling with reckless abandon from the farthest edge of the convention center all the way to get back to my hotel room to record a video. And I rounded a corner going at full tilt and almost ran smack into Heather Graham,
Oh, wow.
the gorgeous actress.
The gorgeous Heather Graham, absolutely.
And you know, it was a moment where the traffic was really low. It was like an awkward spot in the hotel. So I wasn't, even though San Diego was always crowded, I didn't expect to see someone. And of course not to see Heather Graham. So I was just completely stunned and lost the capacity to even speak, you know. So when you say wobbly in the knees, that was definitely wobbly in the knees for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think she showed up on TV over here pretty recently. And all I could think was, whatever happened to her? Because she's one of those actresses that I put her in the same kind of category as Michelle Pfeiffer. That's a little bit underappreciated for her acting skills, because everyone just thinks, oh, she's the blonde ingenue. She's just this pretty, the pretty face that some films would get in. But Michelle Pfeiffer can act. Heather Graham can act. So no, it's that's really cool. Yeah, another individual I'm a big fan of. So no, I'm particularly jealous of that one as well. So excellent. So more people know who you are. Let's have a bit of an introduction then. So Milton Lawson. You're in Houston at the moment. What time is it over there, by the way, for you?
It is 1 p.m. You were absolutely correct in calculating the time zones.
Excellent stuff. So tell us, first and foremost, a little bit about yourself, and certainly your kind of like your history getting into comics writing, because it's not just comics either. You are a writer across many medias. But no, Milton Lawson, who are you, sir?
I'm a comic book writer based in Houston, Texas. As you said, I've done a lot of different types of writing. I started out as a journalist, and I worked in a capacity that wasn't traditional journalism. It was more like emerging internet journalism and actually video stuff. So I did some video editing for a platform, and I'm a lifelong fan of movies and comics, and I wrote a memoir about some travels around Europe, and then I focused on trying to write movie scripts and a TV series that I was going to direct. And it was early on in the sort of craze of web TV phenomenon, and I quickly discovered that although I could probably write some good TV stuff, I don't have the skills and capacity to be an on-set director and consume the millions of bits of data that are streaming into the decision zone and be able to quickly meet everybody's needs, answer everybody's questions, and deliver the product that's in the vision sphere. So I sort of decided I need a simpler format to try to express the visuals that I have in my head. And by simpler, I don't mean the capacity of the medium. I just mean the number of interactions that are happening at a given second. So I made the switch to writing comics about 10 years ago. I've been learning craft. I've been a member of the Comics Experience Workshop that's shepherded by the legendary Marvel editor Andy Schmidt. He's most known for probably the Annihilation event, and he's the guy that kind of basically defined what the modern version of the Guardians of the Galaxy is. And he runs a workshop for writers and artists, and I've just been learning how to write comics in that workshop for several years now. It's quite a struggle to even if you're someone who's read comics your entire life, the medium writing for it is a lot different than writing for other mediums, and so you have to unlearn a lot of the habits and things that you do in other formats. So I went through that process, wrote a number of horrific scripts that I'm glad never saw the light of day. And I did a few shorts to try to learn how to do the comic world. One of them was published in a small anthology. And in a week or two, I'm finally going to have my first published comic book miniseries.
Yep, which we'll get into. We are going to talk about that and let you explain that and let people find out more about how they can get their hands on that. What's the biggest thing that you've learned when it comes to learning comics and learning the craft of comics? What's the thing that you've taken most away over the 10 years that you've been doing this? Because obviously it's like you say that it's a different craft. I've hosted a couple of writing panels recently where they were talking really about the turn, and they were talking about pacing for the page and really kind of breaking a page down, and it's something that I find fascinating. So what's the thing that you've really kind of learned over the last decade?
I think the thing that I've learned the most about writing comics is learning how to right size a concept into a given page count. So if I'm writing a 5-page short or an 8-page short or a full 22-page standalone issue or an issue in an arc, I believe I'll disappoint everyone by being unable to articulate what I've learned very well. Maybe ask me again in 5 years and I'll be better at doing it. But in the earliest days, I would try to cram the equivalent of a 1-hour television pilot into 22 pages because you think of, this is your introductory chapter in both medium. And I just think of, I experienced probably a lot more television than movies. I see a visual story being told, and I have an intuitive understanding of what fits in that. And so I started out trying to cram that into the quote unquote equivalent in comics. And what you quickly find out is, no, that is not the equivalent in comics. It's more like you're introducing the first act almost, and learning that because you want to bring everybody into this world you've imagined as quickly as possible. You want to tell them all the goodies that you're ready to convey and show the ride that you're going to go on to. And in 22 pages in a comic, you really can't do that. You've got to rethink about what you're doing. So I think that is the primary lesson I've learned. I'm starting on a new project with a friend of mine that began as a 2-hour television pilot. And I've gotten to the point to where I've figured out, I just read the script one time and I said, okay, this is where issue 1 ends. And my co-writer on this, he's never written a comic before. And he's like, really? Yep, this is where issue 1 is going to end. So I think that's really the first thing I've learned is just how many elements you can fit in a given page count.
That makes sense. I mean, something we're going to also talk about is the way of getting that kind of story and a comic out to the world, because it's a very busy landscape out there for creators. People are wanting to tell stories in this medium, even if perhaps it is just a very busy marketplace. And I know that you want to talk about San Diego Comic Con. You want to talk about conventions, which is great because that's what I love to talk about. Yeah. But I often find, or I must assume that for a creator, you start with the thought that you're going to take a project to San Diego Comic Con or to a large con and make your big splash, but then you realize just how many people are trying to do the same thing, and it's a very large pond to try and make a splash in. Have you taken books to events like San Diego Comic Con or New York Comic Con or any of the convention, and what was your experience of doing that?
So I have not yet taken like a pitch to a con and approached an editor with. I know a few comic creator friends who have successfully done that. What I have done mostly is try to take finished products and hand those over to editors. Luckily, I have 2 shorts that are just 8 pages in length. So I feel like if a conversation is going well, that's not too much weight to put into someone's duffel bag.
Sure.
And so,
I mean, you're also proving that you've got a completed product. I mean, I think that's when I've been talking to pros at conventions, and they talk about the people that are bringing pages or sketches or any kind of creative work to their table or whatever. What they're wanting to see is, number one, there's some actual skill there. But also they're wanting to see that you can complete the work. It's okay doing sketches and it's okay doing like big splash pages, but they want to know if you can do sequentials, if you can do, if you can write, if you can actually take the product to term, as it were. Possibly not the right term, the phrase to use, but I'll use it. That's what I'll go with. So that the pros that I've spoken to, they just want to know that you can do the work. And I think if you are actually taking a completed printed story, that must be, I mean, surely that's something where they just go, ah, right, okay, this guy means business. He can do the job.
Yeah, and 2 points on that. First, especially for artists, I'm glad that you mentioned sequential pages, because in addition to, being a creator, trying to learn how to get published, I'm also temporarily, I guess, a small businessman hiring artists for various projects. So I'm always on the lookout for artists, and I'm, of course, around tables where artists are approaching other artists that they want to show their portfolio and everything. And I've always got my eyes out, like, okay, I'm going to get this guy's business card if he's good. She's great, he's great. And so I've always got my radar on. And it continues to astound me, people that have had like years of effort and no sequential pages, just all pinups, all sketches, all character design sheets. And it's all promising and fantastic. But for myself, I would rather take a chance collaborating with someone who has, perhaps C+ sequentials versus nothing but A+ pinups. And also
a good sense of where to place the characters, to leave space for speech bubbles and dialogue. So yeah, it's not all everything crammed into the image crammed into the panels, leaving space for the dialogue to keep the story driving and keep the project moving forward. I think that's something that a lot of young artists don't quite grasp. And then again, I've also heard that certainly from a writing standpoint, there's also those writers that overload their page with dialogue so that there's no space to put anything. You have to be very efficient. You have to be very efficient, I can imagine.
Yeah, I was very guilty of that in the early days as well. And in fact, I kind of felt a little bit of an embarrassing kinship with one of your countrymen, Jonathan Ross. The first time he tried to do a comic, it was a little bit, the word count was a little bit high. He got better over time. And luckily, the artists I've worked with have been A+ talent. So they've saved my butt on a number of occasions. So I'm lucky there.
Excellent. So in terms of your comic convention history, and certainly when it comes to San Diego Comic Con, how many times have you gone? What was your first? And what was that kind of first year like going to San Diego?
So I think I've gone a total of, it's either 6 or 7 times. My first one was 2008. And I believe that was the year Zack Snyder brought Watchmen to Hall H. And I think I just happened to luck into the last time that you could be somewhat spontaneous as far as like registering and showing up to panels and things. The entire sort of pre-planning superstructure of media that you and the folks at the Unofficial Blog and Friends of CCI have all sort of created. I don't think the need was quite there yet in '08. Like, you know, I literally walked into the Watchmen panel. Like, you can't even fathom something of that magnitude happening, you know, without you planning, you know, weeks in advance how you're going to be in line in time to get to something like that. So the first time I went, I had not yet made the decision to transition to comics. So I was working on a web TV series at the time. So I was going to panels more focused on that. I went to the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia panel that year that was moderated by Damon Lindelof. And we actually just sat around and talked to Damon Lindelof in the hall afterwards.
Nice.
You can't imagine that happening now. It was just, I think it was just right at that pre-Twilight moment where everything sort of changed. And so I've gotten to see it evolve over time.
I think 2010. I mean, 2010 was my first year. You're right. The kind of infrastructure for news and support for Comic Con wasn't there. I mean, for 2010, I mean, I was just going through every YouTube video I could find. I was trying to get my head around the geography of the whole thing and just the amount of people that was going there. And frankly, when we did arrive, it still wasn't enough. So I mean, at that point, I was definitely on the Facebook page, and this is back when obviously there was group chat threads, and when it was actually a useful tool for kind of putting together like mini forums. And the one for the Comic Con International, which was, I believe, at that point, something like 80,000 subscribers at that point, or fans or friends. And that's where I met Alyssa. That's where I met a whole bunch of other people that were doing their best to get information out there. And then as I was going over the years afterwards, I was finding that I was finding a lot of information before a lot of others. Possibly because here in the UK, there's the time difference. While everyone's asleep, I was collating all this information. Then it was a case of putting out around sort of like midday in the morning here in the UK, and people were waking up to stuff. So I kind of got a little bit of traction in that regard. But 2010, like I say, it was, I'm not going to say it was my fault, but 2010 was the year when, and it was the last year which you could actually go, and I did this because 2010 was also going to be a one-off bucket list. It was the centerpiece to my honeymoon. It was a one and done. And I was walking through sales. I had $200 in my pocket. I was going to catch up with Caroline, who was in Ballroom 20. They had the badge sales booth that was open. It was just there. There was a very bored looking person who sat behind the counter, and I had $200, and that's how much it was for the badges for the next year. And I just went, can I buy 2 weekend badges for next year, please? And he said, yep, there you go. And it was 5 minutes done and done. It was just an incredible thing. And like I say, 2010, it was just, from there, it just got nuts. And I think it was that year that obviously Hall H, you had the full Avengers cast come out as well. So you definitely had the full media element just kind of really taking over Hall H, and the television taking over Ballroom 20. So things just exploded from there. So I kind of came in, to use the surfing analogy, right on the crest of it, just as that wave was starting. So when you have emailed and said that sites like myself and the Unofficial Blog and Friends of CCI helped you go to San Diego Comic Con and get, certainly as the engine really kind of picked up into some serious life around 2012, 2013. It's incredibly flattering to hear you say that. Thank you very much indeed. But
it's absolutely, it became very quickly a need to almost approach the event like a tactical military mind. So you need all of the intel you can get to maximize, because it is quite an investment in time and resources. And for myself, when I would go, I sort of had a dual agenda. I had the agenda of the creator trying to learn the craft. Well, actually a triple agenda. As a creator, early on in the phase, trying to learn craft. Also as an aspiring creator, trying to network. But then also just as a fan, there to enjoy what's there. So figuring out how to measure out those values and goals, and maximize your time. Your podcast and those other sites were invaluable resources, and played a big part in my ability to meet the right person at the right time and learn the right little piece of wisdom that you need at that moment. That's one of the interesting things about going to panels for me, is there's a certain nugget of wisdom that you may have heard 2 or 3 times before and not paid attention to or not been open to. And, one day you might go to 7 panels, and out of all of them, you'll only absorb 3 specific lessons. But if they hit you at the right moment at the right time, the value of that is just amazing.
Sure. I find it really interesting, the contrast between myself and my wife, Caroline, the missus, because, I come in and do the whole spreadsheet thing and break down the panels and break down the what's appearing in every corner of the convention, because I feel I want to try and, if not just for myself, but also to impart that to other people. So when people are wanting to find out more about a certain interest, like, I don't know, tabletop gaming, pinball machines, VR, I don't know. I want to be able to at least say, well, I know that you can go to this corner, to that corner, to wherever. So I try to get into the metrics of the whole thing. That's pretty much where the website has come in. But then you've got Caroline, who doesn't look at the lineup and schedule for the weekend until preview night, when we've got our books in our hands. She's the one that will just freewheel, and she loves that, because then she can literally fall across her next favorite thing. It'll come out of nowhere. It'll just come up. She'll just walk into a room, and it will just, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'll look into that. And next thing you know, it's something that it really kind of catches her attention. And I think that between the two of us, we kind of somehow between the two of us, we find a middle ground, and we definitely have that. Carola, a whole bunch of numbers there. Hello there. Thank you very much indeed for watching on Twitter Periscope. My first year in 2000, they didn't even use the entire show floor. Yeah, I've seen pictures which Jill Thompson has shown me, and Heidi McDonald have shown me as well, of early years of around the sort of like 2000 time, when they didn't have the entire use of the convention floor. And I think this was even before the extension. And it's an idea for a personal project of mine. I would love to do a book on the history of Comic Con, because we've obviously had the documentary which Morgan Spurlock did, and that was about the vibe and about the passion and the things that people can enjoy, and the fact that it is a pop culture convention, and kind of balancing all the disparate elements of what the convention is and how the attendees feel about going to a convention. But I think there's a real story about the history of the convention as well, which I was hoping there was going to be more of coming out of the 50th, out of 2019. I was really hoping there was going to be more of that. Certainly like the very early years, the first couple of years when there was 120, 130 in the room, moving up to the El Cortez when there was 200 and whatever, and then moving down to the very small convention, just the way that it's just grown and developed into this monster. And I think it would be a good time to write that book as well, considering we are now seeing in 2020 and 2021 effectively a Control-Alt-Delete of the whole thing. And we could be seeing a whole brand new convention starting next year. It could literally be a reset. I'm going to put that question to you then. What do you feel that the convention is going to look like next year for yourself?
For myself, specifically on San Diego, I'm very confused because it seems like if the most optimistic reports are accurate, that
would be me.
It would be conceivable that we would have enough vaccinated individuals out there to where people could feel safe enough to go somewhere like San Diego. But I think it's entirely contingent on those optimistic readings being true. I think other conventions might be able to, tiptoe out a little bit earlier than others, just because the amount of density that they have in a given moment is not as insane as San Diego. But if you go to the show floor, San Diego, especially on Saturday, if one person has it, everybody's going to have it. It's just, there's just so much shared compression of personal space, and it comes in unpredictable ways. You can be like me and I try to avoid as many of the giant panels these days, and I try to pick and choose things to where I, maximize the amount of things I see, because there's so many, fantastic opportunities. And I still try to focus on the comic stuff mostly. And I think there's a little bit of a wrong narrative out there about San Diego. There's this narrative out there in a lot of people's perspectives that San Diego has just totally become Hollywoodified and is only about TV and film and stuff. And that's what gets a lot of the coverage. But if you're actually physically there, it's still kind of the best comic show there is still.
Absolutely. It's something I put out for the 2019 show, because that argument rose its head again for 2019. And I think I actually went through my schedules for the last 4 years, because I had them on spreadsheets, so I was ready to go through them all. And I organized them by media, by gaming, by television, by comics. And when comic panels were still clocking in at something like, I think it was like 78, 79% average. That's a pretty high content rate for comics. That's incredible. And that's something that I think Comic-Con needs to remind people every once in a while, that there is this incredible Comic Con that's still there.
And you can go to a panel specifically just for editors. And it'll be in one of the, small to medium sized rooms. And there'll be, 4 or 5 panelists, like someone like Joseph Village, and in the room, probably a lot of aspiring creators, but there will be a lot of people in that room, and they will ask very good questions. If you've got a good moderator, you'll have fountains of useful information there. So I'm a big fan of that. And I wanted to compliment you specifically. That's one of the things I really liked about your approach to this, is that, some of the other folks, they focus more on the movie TV stuff, but you have a comprehensive approach to it. But you said, you asked me specifically, I'm torn. I need to feel a certain...
What do you think is in terms of like the numbers? I mean, we've obviously been hearing about that we're not going to be seeing that many people returning badges. It's going to be the kind of like the same rollover from this year, which would have been your 120, 130,000 badges ballpark. I'm wondering how many of those 130,000 people will actually attend.
Yeah, and then also, I've lost a little track of the narrative on this one, but the year that was it 2018 that they put the little scanning stations in every entryway, and
yeah, the RDIF. Yeah, that was 2018.
And there were a lot of
they introduced it at WonderCon 2017.
And there were a lot of fears about that, you know, creating bottlenecks and ruining the experience. But I was in the camp of this counterintuitively improved the con and kind of exposed that, oh, wow, in the last 5 years, there were a lot more fraudulent badges than we thought, because I felt that the flow went a lot smoother. So if the authorities decide that the way that they're going to make their decision as to whether or not to have the show is going to be based on a certain number, let's say that number is like 75,000. I'm just imagining.
Sure.
They at least have a lot more confidence now that when they say that number is a lot more reliable, that you can estimate that that's actually the number of people that will physically be there. You know, I don't know. I wonder if they're thinking about doing more of the outdoor sort of.
That's the thing. That's the thing, because that's the thing that I've been thinking about the most. Because the tagline that I always use when it comes to describing San Diego Comic Con is, it is not SDCC at the San Diego Convention Center. It's SDCC at San Diego. It takes over the town. And we've all kind of wandered out into Gaslamp and into the surrounding areas, and it's a throng. It's a massive crowd of people. That is not what we need in this current landscape. Now, admittedly, we are talking 9 months down the line, but still, without so I mean, you can really look at it from two perspectives. You can look at inside the building and outside the building. Inside the building, it's whether we're going to have legacy artists and creators showing up, because they're not going to want to leave their house unless there's a vaccine. And I've spoken to enough over the summer, and they've literally just turned around and said, unless there's a vaccine, I ain't leaving this basement. And I went, they were adamant about that. Okay. And then you look outside of the convention center, and how, if we don't have a vaccine, or if where the landscape lies next summer, how you can sort of like organize that amount of people in a unorganizable space. I think that concerns me. But then again, there's so many variables, there's so many elements.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Myself and Caroline have turned around and said, if the unthinkable happens and somebody gets re-elected in 2 weeks' time, we ain't that enthusiastic about heading to the States as international visitors because of the tone of the country. We kind of felt it in 2016, 2017. There was a definite shift. I mean, obviously, you're talking about the RDIF, but that was also the year that they built the secure security tower inside of the convention center. You had security snipers and things in place that were put there by the city around 2017, because obviously there was a lot of fears about security. The tone has changed, and Caroline, I know for a fact, would not be overly enthusiastic if he gets re-elected. So there you go. There's an advert to vote for somebody else other than Donald Trump. Don't vote for Donald Trump, because otherwise we won't come back. And there's everyone else just going, well, that's actually sounds like a really good idea. So who knows? But that, I mean, like I say, there's that concerns me. For yourself, or what your thoughts are, can San Diego survive as well with a reduced number of people attending the convention? Because it does rely so much on the money coming in. We've already seen Mayor Faulkner talking about how much money is left, has come out of the coffers with San Diego Comic Con not taking part this year.
I'm also fascinated by, I'm pretty sure you followed this like I have. I was enamored with the debate over the expansion of the convention center over the number of years. And I learned a lot about local San Diego politics, which was kind of fascinating and frustrating. And in hindsight, it's just so frustrating that they didn't get it worked out to where this would be the year that they could have taken advantage of the fact that there's no convention and done the construction. But they've got all of their warring factions to where nothing gets done. So that's another massive lost opportunity for them. I hope that the answer that comes around, though, is not based on economics, but on public safety.
Sure.
And I don't know enough of the players. I mean, I know the gentleman who comes on your show, and what's his name, David Glanzer?
David Glanzer is he's the public face. He's the director of media for Comic Con International. Basically, if there is a statement that comes out of Comic Con International, it all goes through David's office. It's the reason why you don't see many interviews with many other players from the CCI organization. I have tried on numerous occasions, and we've got the likes of Clydeen Nee, who may be watching, who is the director of the Artist Alley. We've got the director of programming, and we've got people who I'm friends with these people, but they cannot come on the show because the person who is the direct communication is David Glanzer.
Well, I'll turn this around and ask you a question then. I
Sure.
mean, based on Mr. Glanzer, I would personally have a lot more faith in someone like him making the decision, because he seems like a very thoughtful individual. Do you think that that's what will drive the decision, public safety over economics?
No. I genuinely believe that while the organization is in the thousands, when it comes to volunteers, when it comes to the people that are in the committee, I have been sneaky enough to actually be invited into one of the committee meetings that took place like 2 days before the actual convention happening, and I snuck in just to kind of get a sense of what they were talking about and how the organization was going. And there's a lot of manpower there, obviously, but it's still very much of the attitude for myself that it's 8 people who are organizing this thing 50 years ago in a garage around some Pizza Hut on a Friday evening with some beers in the hand, just going, let's put on a show. It's the reason why they want to keep it free, or at least available to everybody. They want to try and get as many people. When I say free, I mean democratized in terms of how many people can actually buy badges. That's the reason why they try to keep the options open for new people to come in. It's the reason why when people have been talking about charging for other outside events, say at the theater or at the Marriott or wherever, know that if you buy your badge, you get access to that. So it's a very West Coast democratized kind of, hey man, let's put on a show kind of thing. So they are very much about the fans. They're about the people that are attending. It's when they say non-profit, and yes, there is a lot of money in the organization for Comic Con International. At the end of the day, there's a lot of money going out as well. So it's all ebb and flow, and the priority for them is the people attending. For me, that's how I see it. And if it wasn't the case, if it was more about a commercial venture, very much like New York Comic Con, it's the reason why I appreciate New York Comic Con, but I don't love it. I love San Diego Comic Con because it is for the fans. So that's my take on it.
I'm also very fascinated about what's going to happen with some of the regional shows. I'm a big fan of Heroes Con, and they are an early June show, which means it's going to be right at the beginning of that time frame where if the rumors are true, a vaccine might be starting to get distributed to the third wave of quote unquote normal people right around then. So everybody's decision making is going to be very difficult there. I will have to make a decision based on both personal safety and also, you know, I need to start promoting my work. Everything
Sure.
is a year behind in terms of my ability to do certain things because of what we've had this year. And
Have you done any reaching out to people for virtual cons and putting out panel content, promoting your work as part of any virtual events?
I haven't done that yet. Most of the shows that I had targeted this year were kind of more physical in nature. So yeah, I'm fascinated by the folks that have managed to do that, like what they've done with Baltimore and other shows. That's amazing. So I've been impressed by what people have been able to do. I just think that there's unfortunately no substitute when you're at the breaking in phase of having a table, being able to interact with people, having them be able to flip through your books and ask you questions and decide whether or not they'll get the thing, you know?
Sure.
So I think that's, and plus the physical proximity to peers and industry leaders to where you can have conversations with people in the hallway and ask them questions, you know? One of the best opportunities I got in comics, I was able to pitch something to a publisher that I admire. And I think that was largely due to like a personal interaction. So those sorts of things are still very, very valuable. And I fear we may have another year where we've got to put a pause on all of that activity, but next year is definitely going to be fascinating because I think people are growing weary of the situation, and some people are going to want to force going back to normal when it's not safe. So I'm completely at a loss as to what's going to happen.
What do you feel is the convention where we will get a strong sense of what we can expect from 2021? Is it WonderCon? Is it C2E2? How far into the year do you think? Because I agree. I believe that there's going to be a real fatigue where people are going to want to just force normality back into the game. And I think it's going to be once Christmas and New Year is over and done with, because over here in the UK, and I suspect in the States as well, there is a real sense of we're going to try and celebrate the holiday season the best we can, but it's going to be very much a case of a reduced kind of capacity, as it were. But I think once the kind of like the bright lights of 2021 come upon us, people are just going to go, okay, we've had enough now. Let's go. But then it's a case of organizations, convention organizations, retailers, vendors, artists, actually just going, well, you may be wanting these shows to go ahead, and yes, some conventions may get themselves up and running, but we ain't going. We're not getting on it. We're not risking it. So I'm really curious to see. I mean, we talked about San Diego, but I think it's be interesting to see what all conventions are going to look like. Not just line management, not just guests wearing masks and stuff, but just how many guests are actually going to show up. Who are the guests that are going to show up? As in, are we talking like COVID deniers, certain style of talent that's just going to go hell to the wind? Let's just get it done. So that could change a tone of a convention. It's just so many variables. That's the thing, and I think that's where a lot of people, I hope, are going to watch my channel and what the unofficial blog and what Friends of CCI are going to do, because we're going to have to keep a real close eye on this shit.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a fascinating progression. Like I think the canary in the coal mine might even be Emerald City, perhaps, because it's early enough in the year to where I think it would be too early to believe that enough people will have been vaccinated. But it's also a comics show. So you've got to, some of those people have got to think, well, wait a minute, we can maybe manage this show because it's not going to be overwhelmed by, like, you know, fans wanting to see Jason Momoa, you know. It might be able to be tempted to think you can put some order into that chaos. So I think those folks will have a very tough decision. And then C2E2, I think, will be right at that joint point where maybe a lot of us will make the wrong decision. I don't know.
Sure.
And then I think it'll all culminate into San Diego. So I mean, it's incredibly fascinating. I really don't have any good ideas.
No, I mean, if there's anything that I feel I can take away from what we can expect from next year, and yes, we can speculate about the actual physical conventions as much as we like. I think the one thing that we're going to take away is that virtual convention or virtual online content is here to stay. I think there's so much that has been put into it. The technology is there now. The level and quality of the content is now a strong enough state where it's going to be a permanent, alongside concurrent feature of conventions. So I'm really curious to see if we're going to see a resurgence in Comic Con HQ. Comic Con HQ died on its ass because no one wanted to pay for it, and certainly not wanting to pay for a kind of G4 substitute. Which they wanted to actually see the panels. They wanted to actually just enjoy the con. Yeah,
if you know, at every panel of note I've ever been to, there's been an official San Diego person recording something. So I know that they've got troves of content that they've never released. And even if they didn't have that, just 1 year of recording every panel at the show, I think a lot of people would just want to buy a video pass.
Sure.
One of the things I liked about this year's show was, you know, every single panel that I would have wanted to see, I can see. It's online. So that's very intriguing as well.
Which ones of the virtual conventions do you feel have done it right in terms of the content they've put out, the way they've approached their channel, the way that they've kind of got out there? Was it DC Fandom? Was it because I mean that's a whole other conversation as well, whether we're actually going to see DC appearing at any conventions anytime soon, because they have just nailed their market and what they've done with DC Fandom. What's been the organization that you feel has actually done the best job of getting content and keeping engagement going with the audience? Because I think that's the key. It's a case of you can put as much content up as you like, but if you can engage with your audience, that's when it works. Which is the one that you feel has done it best?
I have unfortunately not paid as much attention to this space as I should have, and I've mainly been seeing sort of out of context clips from creators that I follow. I think the one show, what is the one that had a very green logo? Gosh, I can't remember the title of it, but I can picture the graphics in my head.
Is it a TV show?
No, the con itself.
Oh, right, okay.
Every font of the overlay of all the guests was like this big, loud green color. But I can't remember which.
That sounds like Mainframe.
I think it might have been
Mainframe Comic Con, yeah.
I think Mainframe. The things I saw there were really good. But I was mainly paying attention to people that I already admire. So I was maybe a biased audience member there.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that's also the other conversation that you can have about virtual cons and conventions landscape as it is, because Another example where I bring Caroline into the equation. Caroline is a Comic Con fan. She's as deep a nerd as I am. She loves Comic Cons. She hasn't seen any virtual conventions this year. She has not been remotely interested. And I think there's a lot of people that have just gone, no, the reason why we go to Comic Con is to not just see that person interesting up on the stage. It's to sit with our friends and bond and join the community and join the family and make new family. Because we make our own family at these shows.
Yeah.
And it's a strong bond. And that's what we celebrate. So I think when I say Control-Alt-Delete and the fact that I'm wondering how many people are actually going to go to conventions going forward, I think the reason why I ask it is because I'm wondering if we have basically had a year where people have just gone, well, is it worth spending all that time, money, and effort to go to these shows? Now we've had a year where we can't. At the other side of it, are they just going to go, do we have to?
I hope not.
Because they can continue that sort of like community online.
I think that in various dimensions of life, I think some things are going to shift irrevocably, but I think the social public space thing, the fact that we've all had to voluntarily or involuntarily remove ourselves from these things, is going to make us treasure them even more when they're available again. And what you said about the bonding part, I definitely miss that. I miss being around the fellow travelers. San Diego is the most extreme version of this, but at any show, I get my batteries and my spirit recharged just by being immersed among the fellow travelers. And there's always this kind of great moment. You'll see like a really clever costume, and you'll be like, those are my people. Yes, those are my people. And then of course you'll see something idiotic and you'll be cringing and going, oh no, these are my people. but I think that experience is irreplaceable. And I hope that, I think you're right that a lot of things are going to be reimagined and there is going to be a Control-Alt-Delete. But I still think that there's going to be a desire for that in-person experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just to put it out there for people who are watching. I was being a bit doom and gloom then, but I'm hoping. We heard it from David Glanzer when he's been interviewed. We've heard it from the organizers of New York. We've heard it from all of these convention organizers where they feel that there is going to be a real snapback. There's going to be people who are craving to interact. So it's going to be really interesting to see just where we are, certainly from next year, and how that's going to play out. So no, thank you very much indeed for to kind of like hashing out those thoughts and certainly having thoughts of your own on that. So thank you. Let's talk about the upcoming project then, which it sounds fascinating, frankly. Let's talk about the genesis of it, the origin, the story. Yeah, please go ahead and explain about this book that's coming out. You say in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes, it was originally slated to be out next Wednesday, October the 28th. However, as with many things in the COVID world, just the distribution pipeline for a lot of publishers seems to be about 1 week behind all the time. So the best knowledge I have at the moment is the book is going to be released on November the 4th. The book is Thompson Heller, Detective Interstellar. It's a story about a private detective that goes around the galaxy solving cases. And he usually takes on cases that have sort of a ethical dimension, a bit of public controversy, conflict involved. And it's a 3-issue miniseries. Each issue is a standalone issue where our detective character goes to a different planet and is presented with a new mystery. So it's kind of each story is a one and done mystery, but there is also a character arc that goes throughout the entire miniseries. So if you read the whole thing, you get another layer of experience as well. The book is drawn by the fantastic Dave Chisholm, who has already had a great year with the miniseries Canopus, and he's about to unleash on the world a freaking masterpiece about the life of the jazz legend Charlie Parker, called Chasing the Bird. And you're going to want to be an early adopter on Dave, because I really think there's going to be a lot of strong Eisner buzz for his jazz book. And he did phenomenal work on Thompson Heller, Detective Interstellar. He's got a really loose art style. We've got a bit of a classic sci-fi vibe going on, and it's a bit of a space noir kind of story. So if you like that kind of stuff, this will be your cup of tea.
I mean, it looks fantastic. I'm also loving the trailer as well, which we're running at the moment on the screen. And you're right, the artwork looks fantastic. It just definitely looks a compelling piece of storytelling. How long's this been kind of like noodling around in your head at this point?
This one actually, believe it or not, is probably about 6 years in the making.
Wow.
There was kind of like a beta version of this story that got developed and was kind of in line with a slightly different publishing arrangement and a different art team. And as with many creative projects, after you get into a certain length of the collaboration, it just turns out things aren't totally working out right, and you have to do a little bit of a reset. And that's what happened. So we kind of did a reset, and I was fortunate enough to, on the real version of the project, hook up with Dave Chisholm and Fabian Cobos, the colorist. The book itself started as a response to a challenge in the Comics Experience Workshop, the one I mentioned earlier that's run by Andy Schmidt. And it was presented as a challenge to create a new character. And one of the creators that's like a fellow of the workshop explained that there was a character creating technique that he called a quote unquote borrowed character. And the reason it's called a borrowed character is if you're on a deadline and you need to create a new character for something and you're just fresh out of ideas, one way that you can sort of force a new creative character into being is to sort of take two known elements and cram them together. And so the example that he gave was, okay, imagine a known character and then either combine them with another character or put them in a completely different context, and that in and of itself will create a new character. And the example he always used was, imagine the freedom fighter from Braveheart. Imagine that character, but then transport him in a different context, have him be a Starfleet captain in the world of Star Trek. And just through that juxtaposition of removing that character from his native element, you can imagine, oh my goodness, this is a completely new character, and I can run with storytelling with this guy. So they said, use that same technique to create a new character, which is what I did. And I created Thompson Heller, and I wrote a short, little 8-page short to sort of introduce his world and his concept. And it was very well received. And so I expanded it into a 1-issue and then expanded it into a 3-issue.
I mean, it's great that you're actually getting the book out there. It's being published by SourcePoint. I'm curious as to why you did go to direct market, why perhaps you didn't go to crowdfunding. What was your thoughts processes on that?
Well, the main thought process there was I still feel that most of the core audience I want to reach out to and begin building relationships with are the people who are going to the direct market, are the people who go into the local comic shop. I definitely want to expand further into other dimensions as well. But I still feel like that's where I want to get the foothold. And I felt that the art team was so strong, it should be compelling for a small publisher. And I reached out to a number of small publishers. And SourcePoint has a number of factors going for it, primary of which is the people there they're just good people. They're fantastic people. They have a strong relationship with the Comics Experience Workshop that I'm a member of. So that's how the introductions are made. And I've been able to witness, they've got a great ground game. They have a very strong convention presence. And not only do they have a presence, they've got the floor sales mentality down to a science. You walk by their booth and those guys, they interact with fans in a really good way. And having those guys as ambassadors for one of my projects is just a phenomenal idea. And of course, the fact that we're in this COVID world is a little bit weird at the moment. So that part of the calculus might not fully come into being until maybe 2022. But that's sort of the genesis and the destination there.
Well, I mean, certainly it's a great support system to have as well. And not only that, but you're absolutely right. And certainly the perception I have of SourcePoint is very much like Vault, in that it's a very small core group of people who love the art form. They want to show as much support as they can to the creators that come out of their stable. Then they don't want to get into anything they don't want to get into the weeds of the industry. They just want to put out really good, strong books. And what I get from SourcePoint is that they've got to maybe up their marketing game a little bit, but certainly the social media chatter, when you talk to them and when fans talk to them, they're very positive. And no, I'm a fan very much of SourcePoint. So no, they're a good home to be at. And like you say, it's a book that has been delayed. What's been that kind of challenge, and in terms of when you feel that or when SourcePoint have decided to put the book out?
Well, I went into this year with the expectation that we could maybe be an early spring book, and they happened to have a lot of balls in the air and hadn't made a quite firm decision right when COVID really started affecting the scene. And so the conversation was still a little bit up in the air right at the point, but we still had a vague understanding. And then with my book in particular, it became part of a, hey, we just don't know, dude. We don't know. And it was just this long game of, we don't even know when we're going to know. And then when we did know, it was the kind of thing like, oh, hey, you remember a couple of those last minute detail tweaks that we were talking about, or we didn't even tell you about? We need those tomorrow. It was one of those kind of things. It's like the files had been sitting on the server for literally like over a year. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we got to do this, and this, and we need it. Can you do it tonight? If not, definitely by tomorrow. So it was definitely one of those kind of like nothing, and then, oh my gosh, wake up right into the thick of it.
Yeah. But like I say, I mean, what I've seen, and I also like the fact that, like you say, it's a 3-issue miniseries. It's not going to stretch a budget when someone wants to get into a book, and when you read about some series where it's going to be 8, 10, 12 issues or whatever, and it's 3 issues, it's done and done, which is it's snappy. It's got its own built-in energy in just having the 3 issues, and like I say, it looks incredible. So I'm really excited about what is going to be going on with this particular book. And yeah, we've got it up on the screen at the moment. The artwork looks incredible. And yeah, I really am. Any kind of story which has that kind of sort of detective noir vibe to it, but with a little bit of an acerbic edge, I'm down for that. So no, it looks incredible. And yeah,
thank you.
So no, very much looking forward to supporting this when the book hits shelves in 2 weeks' time. So yeah, where's the best place for people to find out more information? Where do you mostly live online when it comes to sharing updates?
Mostly on Twitter. I'm a creature of Twitter, and in fact, you can see it on the column of my website there. I'm at Citizen Milton on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm just about to put that up, so at least people can see it, and yeah, head to the actual site. But like I say, I mean, I've been putting up the URL for MiltonLawson.com as well, which is where you can see all of this, the artwork and all the updates as well for what Milton's been putting up. But yes, on Twitter, Citizen Milton, that's on Twitter, very much worth checking out. I'm excited for the book, and yeah, I'm really excited to see what else is going to be coming from you down the line. So listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for coming on, and we look forward to supporting the book when it arrives.
Thank you so much. Yes, and I can rub my evil hands together and say there are plans for next year as well. I just can't really talk about them at length. So
can you give us a little bit of can you give us a satellite view? What we're talking? We're talking a comic? Are we talking what we're looking at?
I do have a comic that is in the works. It is called Orson Welles, Warrior of the Worlds, and it's a comic that has the premise: what if Orson Welles' infamous radio broadcast about an alien invasion from Earth was actually real? Hey. And the answer to that is, well, of course, Mr. Welles gets drawn into a secret life defending Earth from aliens. And we weave in a lot of his true biographical events in his life and explain certain gaps in his oeuvre and quirky things about his biography as being actually the result of various alien encounters. And it's got art by a man named Eric Whalen, and it's still in the works, so I can't give you a firm estimate as to when it's going to come out, but the work that's being done on the art side so far is just really fantastic, and I think everybody's going to dig it.
As an Orson Welles fan, I'm excited. I'm up for that. That can be interesting. I'd like to see how you're going to fold in kind of like how the man got gregarious at the back end of his career. So let's see how far you're going to get into his lifestyle in that regard. So no, I'm up for that. That's great. Brilliant. Thank you so much indeed for coming on, Milton. It's an absolute pleasure. And hopefully we'll see you at conventions down the line when we get to the light at the end of the tunnel, sir. Same
as well.
Excellent stuff. Look after yourself and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, sir. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Oh, fantastic. I'm going to put that URL back up on screen because it is well worth checking out. MiltonLawson.com. You saw some glimpses of THOMPSON HELLER. Yeah, Detective Interstellar, which is a great title in its own, which is fantastic. But yeah, really excited to see how that book it gets received, especially as it's something that is going straight to shelves, and it's an interesting landscape when it comes to comics in the direct market at the moment. It's a case of fighting for every sort of like shelf space you can. So all the best to Milton on that, and all the success to it in the world. Excellent stuff. Right, we're going to get into some bits and pieces. Thank you very much indeed to our Patreon supporters for sticking with us for this show. A little bit longer than usual, but that's fine. I do want to get into what we're going to be getting our conversation in the next couple of weeks, because we have ourselves some great guests. So I do want to talk about those. So let's bring up just a couple of updates when it comes to our guests for the next few weeks, and also this week as well, because we've got ourselves a special guest that's going to be joining us on Thursday. We've got a special incidental episode, which is something that we do every once in a while when we get the chance to get a guest that perhaps isn't able to join us on a Sunday, or if perhaps, as it happens, we've got a full roster of shows for the upcoming weeks. So we've got ourselves a special guest that's going to be joining us. Dan Waters is somebody who I am a big fan of. If I, in fact, I can actually just lean over and just grab a book. If I just bring this up onto the screen, this is Lucifer, which was part of the Sandman universe, which this is actually quite a good book you want to track down for Halloween, because this was a scary piece of work. The great artwork and also just fantastic writing. Dan Waters is an immense talent. He's part of the White Noise Studio group of creators who are a bunch of people who started out as being just a real strong collection of talent, writing artists, whatever. But over the last couple of years, because I did a panel for their kind of coming out party at MCM Comic Con around this time 2 years ago, and they were just kind of like telling their plans for what they've got coming up and how they kind of like bounce off each other. Alex Packnadell, Dan Waters, who else? Ram V, all of which have gone on to become incredible superstars in comics. We are going to be doing a White Noise panel at some point in November. Put November, beginning of December. But looking forward to talking to them. But we've got Dan Waters specifically because he's got some great individual projects coming up, certainly in the back end of this year. It's going to be a pleasure talking to Dan. That's Wednesday. So do join us. Same time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Well, sorry, get this right. 6 p.m. GMT, certainly. So we're talking 11 p.m. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And it's on Wednesday, the 28th. So do join us for that episode. Then on next Sunday, we've got ourselves a bit of a packed guest list because we have ourselves Max Gedney, Ramsey, Julian Parry, and Simon Delafond. Now, Max Gedney is the guy that has put together Story Worlds Media. It's a UK comics house, a comics publisher, released in 2020, which is bold at the end of the day. That's something to really kind of celebrate, that they're taking the effort to get out there and sort of like release books by some incredible talent. Ramsey is a fantastic talent on the independent circuit here in the UK. Julian Parry, Simon Delafond, all of these are great talents. We're going to be talking about the challenges of launching a UK comics publisher in 2020. So that's going to be next Sunday, Story Worlds with Max Gedney. The week after, we have ourselves our Vault Comics special. Now, this I'm also looking forward to. This is going to be on the 8th of November. Damien and Adrian Wassel. So we've got the boys, we've got the brothers, and we've got David Disanyaki, who's their director of press and their kind of like their public face, as it were. Vault Comics have gone from strength to strength. They are, for me, one of the most exciting publishers out there. They are telling some really, really cool stories. So that's Vault Comics. So that's going to be on the 8th. Then on the 15th, Scotty Young is going to be joining us. Scotty is obviously the legendary artist behind the works of, for example, The Wonderful World of Oz, I Hate Fairyland, and all the variant covers that you know and love. He's an incredible artist, and we're lucky to get to talk to Scotty Young. That's going to be on the November the 15th show. And then on the 22nd, we are going to be talking to Mike Tajini. Now, this may not be a name that you are familiar with, but you know the site that he's the editor-in-chief for. He is the guy behind Den of Geek, which is meaning that he's somebody who's got a real peripheral vision on how media is being created in 2020, what we can expect in 2021, what we can expect. I mean, hopefully by the time we get to speak to Mike in November, we'll get to know about Black Widow, about Free Guy, about Coming to America, about all of these big projects and big films that are the ones that were supposed to get us back into the cinemas. We're going to see where we are with that. But Mike Tajini, the editor-in-chief of Den of Geek, going to be joining us. That is going to be on November the 22nd. So please do join us for that. We'll keep you up to date with all the updates when it comes to the upcoming episodes. So looking forward to that. But we also have ourselves just a bit of a graphic here. Oh yes, we have another incidental episode as well on Thursday, the 12th of November. We are going to be joined by Heather Antos, who's a cracking editor. She's the person that oversees Valiant, but also has a fair amount of history when it comes to comics and fandoms. So going to be great to talk to Heather. That's on Thursday, the 12th of November. And there you go, wrapping up the month. White Noise Studios, Alex Patnadell, Ram V, Dan Waters, and Ryan O'Sullivan all join us for the Sunday 29th of November show. So that is the lineup coming up. Right, let's get into something which, well, let's talk about the virtual convention landscape at the moment. We have a virtual convention which is happening as we speak, and is obviously doing great guns. We mentioned it very briefly on our chat with Milton, which is Mainframe Comic Con. Mainframe is an organization that have been putting shows on over the course of the summer. They were the first ones to do a virtual Comic Con straight out of the gate. They are an organization that they just grabbed hold of this platform, which I use, which is StreamYard, got guests in, talked to some great comic guests, and just had the opportunity, and they ran with it to the extent where they have now paired with Baltimore Comic Con, and this weekend they are talking to some great guests. For example, they're doing it also, something they did over the last couple of episodes, editions, is the multiple halls. So for example, here, this is Sunday Hall A. They've got the likes of Katie Cook, Michael Marisi, Charles Sewell, Greg Pak. That's incredible. Now, admittedly, it's showing down here. There's only one watching, which is us, but they are also going out on the other channels as well. It's going out on Word Balloon. It's also going out on Comic Pop as well. So they're kind of actually on Comic Corpse as well. They're it's possibly something I could criticize, that they are possibly diversing too much, and therefore they're not consolidating an actual audience. But that's their choice. That's what I think they just wanted to, like myself, when I send out to Twitch and Periscope and YouTube and Facebook, I want to try and reach as many people as possible. And I think that's what they're trying to do with this particular lineup. So Hall A there, you had a cracking bunch of comic creators, and it is all comic based. You'll see. So you've got the likes of here in Hall B, Erica Schultz, Stan Sakai, who had a very good night last night, Alex Aguirre, Dean Hasbell, Dave Kelly, and moderated there by Whitney Matheson as well. I'm not going to show too much of the actual content because I don't want to get flagged when it comes to the actual shows. But what they've been doing with this particular live show and this particular lineup has been so impressive, especially when it comes to comic content. They don't do much in terms of multimedia. If they do, it's mostly animation, and even then it's kind of comic aligned. So they are very much celebrating comics, which is great. They've teamed up with John Suntress from Word Balloon, so you've got all of that content as well, or connections there. You've got, like I say, Comic Pop as well. They've got a fair number of people that they can bring in on board. You've got Chuckload of Comics as well. Just bringing it all together has just been impressive. They haven't had the numbers. I mean, if I just bring up the actual screen there, the subscribers, I mean, 372. I think I've got more than that, which is a bit disturbing. People need to support this channel, and I think you need to support Mainframe Comic Con, because what they've been doing is just, for me, groundbreaking. They've been very ambitious with what they do. No more so than last night. As part of Baltimore Comic Con, they are always the host of the Ringo Awards, which is the celebration not only of Mike Wieringo, who is a legendary artist, but also just the celebration of some really fantastic talent. Last night, the idea was to have an introduction, have a host introducing a number of categories. As the categories were being read out, grab as many of the people that were being nominated and put them into a waiting room. I mean, if you've seen the layout, which I can do on here, putting them all to the side, and then introducing the winner, letting them know live on the stream and bringing them in. The restrictions when it comes to StreamYard, in case you don't particularly know, you can bring in up to 10 guests into a waiting room in the background and then have up to 6 people on screen. That's a lot of spinning of plates, and it's a lot of messaging in the background. You're saying, okay, we need you to click on the link now. We need you to jump in and take part in this. And they had a lot of technical issues last night. But if I compare that with the Eisners, which was a pre-recorded setup, I enjoyed the Ringo Awards more. It was more spontaneous. It was more live. It was more real. Some great people being celebrated as well. Stan Sakai, like I say, I think he won 3 of the Ringo Awards, including Best Creator, Best Book as well. Sorry, Best Anthology. Just some amazing people that were being celebrated. And do check out Ringo Awards on their Twitter and also on Facebook as well for the full listing of winners, because I think they just did an amazing job of that particular lineup. And what they've done, like I say, with Mainframe Comic Con is just blown me away. Hopefully, I'd like to try and get more aligned. I'd love to be a panel host for them, perhaps. I'd love to be more involved with what they're doing, but I'm fingers crossed on that one. At the end of the day, they've got a great collection of people involved already. They don't need me by any stretch of the imagination, but I would love to be more involved because they are just a great, positive bunch of people wanting to talk about comics and embrace the fandom and just really celebrate stuff. And that's great. I cannot deny that at all. On the other side of the spectrum, then, we do have another event that took place 2 weeks ago, which was New York Comic Con, or at least the virtual version of it, October 8th to 11th, over the course of those 3 days, which took place under the banner of Metaverse. New York Comic Con Metaverse, or NYCC Metaverse, and MCM Metaverse, because it wasn't just the New York convention. They also tried to fold in the other business aspect of it, which is MCM Comic Con here in the UK. The thing that I want to talk about is just the level of interaction. What they did with their shows, slightly different to how they say San Diego Comic Con did theirs. San Diego Comic Con created the videos, uploaded them, and put them as and just made them private or made them public. So when it came to a certain time of the day, they made that video public and people could watch it. There's no comments, there was no interaction. Here, on the other hand, they did them as YouTube premieres. The videos were uploaded, there was a countdown, there was a definite time when the panel was going to start, and that allowed also for Q&A. Perhaps people that were involved in the panel could also jump in on the Q&A and interact with fans, and there was a real kind of community and a real kind of audience to the whole thing. I think it's safe to say that the numbers aren't exactly incredible. I mean, there's certainly they've grown over the course of the last 2 weeks. I don't know where my camera's going there, but just kicked it with my foot. But considering that we've got the likes, I mean, some pretty good. It's a real varied set of numbers when it comes to who was watching. But the fact that you've got the likes of Lovecraft Country, a panel about the actual illustrations for the series and the kind of the 2 workshop panels for the series. You have Lovecraft Country at 1,100 views, and Lovecraft Country Special Effects Makeup Masterclass, 486 views. That ain't great. Live Q&A with Jean Loon Yang, who was a Ringo Award winner last night for Superman Smashes the Klan, 300 views. X-Men Evolution from Angel to Anole, History of Mutants, 435 views. But then you do have the likes of Anime, Nostalgia, and McNuggets with Heavenly Controller, clocking in 27,000 views. You've got, let's have a quick look down the line, and let's look at a couple of the headliners. In fact, I think I can probably sort by most popular. Here we go. Let's have a look at the big ones that came on. Shocker or surprise, Steven Universe at 555,000 views. Oh, that's 4 years ago. Let's have a look at a little bit more up to date. Okay, so the one that would, yeah, I can tell by the thumbnail that they've used. So 191,000 views for the Boys cast interview. Okay. Discovery of Witches Season 2, 151,000 views. You've got Marvel's MODOK First Look at 104,000 views. And also Sam Hewn and Graham McTavish Trivia Deathmatch, 113,000 views. Umbrella Academy at 70,000. Animaniacs at 73,000. Smallville cast at 59,000. We're talking, they're okay numbers, but they're not groundbreaking numbers. And I think that's going to make MCM really think about how they were received as a virtual convention. We also had 2 weeks ago the Lakes International Comic Art Festival. That was a totally different affair. When I say that they were concentrating on comic creators, we're not talking kind of mainstream comic creators. We're talking real niche, independent, perhaps manga. They really kind of get into some real investigating of creators that perhaps not many people would know, and it was a great eye-opener for a whole bunch of people. Then you also had the likes of Charlie Adlard and Dave Gibbons and Mark Miller showing up for the Desert Island Comics, which was a good series of videos that they put out. I think the Lakes International Comic Art Festival live version, or the virtual version, went well. I think the New York was incredibly slick and went well, but the level of interaction, I feel, has been lost, and it happened since DC Fandom. It was almost like that was the pinnacle. That was the San Diego Comic Con for this year. It was the big show, and then it was a case of everyone just going, okay, we've had our virtual fix now. Okay, and then the conversation has died. And I think that's a little bit disappointing and distressing when so many good people are putting out so much good content. I think people are thinking to themselves, yes, a panel's a panel and a video's a video, but what about the group interaction, the kind of like the group watch thing? How about just, I think that's the thing they need to crack. They need to crack an audience watching as one and interacting with each other and really bouncing off each other, watching something. I think they need to crack the whole other aspect of conventions in terms of discovering a creator, perhaps, and a random panel. I think that's something that needs to happen. Kind of just a stream that is going on, when guests can come on board, which maybe not are announced, and then it becomes more of a freewheeling event. You are discovering stuff at a convention. Maybe that's something that needs to be introduced. Who knows? I'm kind of freewheeling here. It's a case of what conventions can do with the landscape and with the technology to hand. Mainframe have been very ambitious, and it's been fun to watch. I'm not going to lie, it's been great to see the ambition being realized. But now it's a case of, okay, we can see what the technology can do and we can see what guests we can get on board, but now it's a case of engaging with the fans. That's the nugget we need to crack, because if we don't, then we really are going to be in a real dearth of convention interaction and that community. And shows like this will be the only kind of group therapy that we'll have together until we actually have conventions back in whatever form that we have them in 2020, 2021. So there we go. That's where I am with my thoughts. Do go check them out. However, like I say, they're on their own websites. They've got New York Comic Con, which you can find still, and find the Metaverse, which is still their kind of like their home for what they've got happening. You've got Mainframe Comic Con as well, or Mainframe Comic Con Live, or Baltimore Comic Con Live. Yeah, do check the channels out. Mainframe, subscribe. All of these channels, subscribe, show some support, show some interaction. Likewise with myself, if you wouldn't mind, please do show support to this channel by interacting down below and showing support for what we do, because it's the only way that we can keep the interaction going. So please do like and subscribe. In fact, I've got myself a little bit of an animation somewhere. Like and subscribe, of course. Just click below, hit subscribe, hit notification, and it'll let you know when we're live with our shows. And of course, do follow us on our social media, on Facebook at An Englishman in San Diego, on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Twitter at Englishman SDCC. We'll do our best to keep the conversation going, and we'll do our best to keep the community alive. But the only way you can do that is by interacting and supporting us. And watching each time we do Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. I'm back again next Sunday. Please do join me. No, tell a lie. I'm going to be back on Wednesday when we talk to Dan Waters. It's our incidental episode. It's going to be at 6 p.m. GMT. Do join us with this conversation with a true comics talent. And he's got some great content and books coming down the line. The man knows how to get under your skin as a comics writer. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. The audio version of this podcast will be up on Spotify, on iTunes, and on SoundCloud. Again, like and subscribe. Comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your thoughts on the future of Comic Cons in 2021. What do you feel we're going to be experiencing? Is it going to be smaller crowds? Is it going to be, who knows? Let's find out. Let's get some conversation. Comment down below. Let us know what you're thinking, and let's hopefully see each other safe and well in whatever form, in as soon as humanly possible. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From myself, Leonard Sultana, from Milton Lawson, and from everyone watching. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.